Kaiserslautern, Germany, June 26, 2006. 90 minutes played. The scoreboard reads 0-0, Italy versus Australia, round of 16. And if you're a Socceroos fan, you still feel this in your stomach. The Italians are down to 10 men. Australia, against all odds, looks like the stronger side. A nation that spent 32 years wandering in footballing exile has made it back to the World Cup, and they are bossing it. Extra time is coming. You can feel it. Everyone can feel it. And then, it happens. Italy's Fabio Grosso charges down the left flank, peels into the penalty area, and goes down under the challenge of Lucas Neal. The Spanish referee doesn't hesitate. Penalty. The stadium erupts in controversy. Neal, by every replay ever shot, missed the man entirely. Grosso leaned into the contact. Grosso went looking for it. But none of that matters now. Up steps Francesco Totti. One kick, one moment. The ball flies high and right. Mark Schwarzer dives the correct way and can't reach it. Italy 1, Australia 0. Final score. The dream is over. Italy went on to win the World Cup, and Australia went home knowing they deserved more. That moment, that injustice, that heartbreak, it is burned into the soul of Australian football, and it is also somehow a strange kind of gift, because it told the football world something it needed to hear. It said, the Socceroos belong here, and they have never stopped believing it. Welcome to the story of Australia at the World Cup. Pull up a seat. There is a particular kind of sporting identity that Australia has built for itself, and it is not the identity you'd find in Brazil's Jogo Bonito or Spain's Tiki-Taka. Australia's football story is something rawer than that, something tougher, something that smells like stubbornness and red dirt, and the sheer refusal to be told they're not good enough. The Socceroos, and yes, the nickname absolutely slaps, represent a country where football has always had to fight for its place. Cricket, Australian rules, rugby league, rugby union, they're all standing in line ahead of football on the cultural ladder. And yet here Australia is, heading into the 2026 FIFA World Cup in North America for their 7th overall appearance and their 6th in a row. 6 consecutive qualifications. That is not an accident. That is a program. That is growth. Today we're going to trace this whole incredible journey, from a squad of factory workers and salesmen in 1974 to a golden generation that shocked the world in 2006, to a new generation under a new coach who is publicly saying the words quarter-final and meaning them. We're going to talk about the moments that mattered, the legends who carried the badge, the heartbreaks that shaped them, and we're going to find out exactly what the Socceroos are capable of doing in 2026. Let's go. Right. Let's start with the here and now. Australia will make their 6th consecutive World Cup appearance in 2026, 7th overall, and they are heading to North America having finished 2nd in their Asian qualifying group behind Japan. The man in charge is Tony Popovic. And if you don't know that name yet, remember it, because his is one of football's more quietly remarkable coaching careers. Popovic replaced Graham Arnold about a year ago, at a point when Australia were floundering in 5th in their Asian qualifying group. He turned it around. He got them to the World Cup, and he's not done there. Popovic has publicly set a lofty goal of reaching at least the World Cup quarterfinals, a feat the Socceroos have never achieved in their history. The former Crystal Palace captain was actually part of the 2006 squad, the last time Australia reached the round of 16. Now he's the coach. Now he wants more. What's he building tactically? Under Popovic, the squad has shifted toward a younger, faster, and more mobile style, pressing higher, exploiting space, and counterattacking with pace and directness rather than long spells of possession. Think compact, hard-working, transition-focused. An organized defensive block that can quickly flip into a dangerous counter. It is not pretty football. It is effective football. And at a World Cup, effective matters. Soccer Drive now, the group draw. Australia are in Group D alongside Turkey, the United States, and Paraguay. Fascinating. Deeply fascinating. Let's unpack that. The USA is a co-host and a team in serious form heading into this tournament. Turkey are a proper dark horse, organized, dangerous, and deeply motivated. Paraguay are no pushover. They qualified from a brutally competitive South American group. There is not a soft game in there. Not one. Australia opened their campaign against Turkey before facing co-hosts USA and then taking on Paraguay. That opening game against Turkey could be decisive. Win it, and the whole group opens up. Lose it, and Australia will need results against the Americans on their home turf, which is a tall order. Who are the players to know? Goalkeeper and captain Matthew Ryan, 34, plays for Levante in La Liga and brings a wealth of experience to the Socceroos. He is the heartbeat of this squad. Calm, commanding, experienced. The kind of captain who makes the whole side believe. Experienced players like Matthew Leckie, Jackson Irvin, Aziz Behich, and Milos Degenek provide leadership and international pedigree. These are the veterans, the glue, the ones who've been to Qatar, who've been in the big moments, who know what it takes. And then there is the player every neutral should be watching. Nestori Irankunda, an explosive talent with a powerful right foot, recently moved to Watford from Bayern Munich, who retained a buyback clause. He is gaining the senior experience needed to lead the Australian attack. Bayern kept a buyback clause on a 20-year-old. Read that again. Popovic has likened him to Wilfried Zaha, that same direct, electric quality, that same ability to destroy defenders in one-on-one situations. Popovic is not satisfied with simply being there. He wants to do something special. He wants to make the nation proud. Can they get to the quarterfinals? We'll get back to that. But first, let me tell you how Australia got here. Let's go way, way back. The Australian national team didn't really emerge in any formal sense until 1922, when they toured New Zealand. But football itself had arrived with the waves of immigrants who built modern Australia. European, South American, Eastern Mediterranean communities who brought the game with them and played it in parks and on factory pitches on weekends. Australia's first World Cup appearance came in 1974, when the Socceroos qualified for the tournament in West Germany. It was a momentous achievement for a nation where football was still fighting for recognition alongside Australian rules, rugby league, and cricket. Picture that squad for a moment. Of the 22 Australian players who made up the 1974 World Cup squad, all but 8 had come through Australia's post-war immigration program. Englishman Peter Wilson was the captain. Hungarian-born Adi Abonyi and English striker Adrian Alston provided the attacking weapons, while German Manfred Schäfer returned to his homeland to provide steel and defense. These were working men. Most of the players held down blue-collar jobs in areas such as sales and were required to take extended leave for the tournament. Sales jobs. Extended leave. To play in a World Cup in West Germany. What a story. What a completely wild story. Harry Williams also became the first Indigenous Australian to play at a World Cup. That matters. That meant something. An icon. Australia made it out of qualifying in 1974, which was its own epic, involving wins over New Zealand, Iraq, and Indonesia before a home-and-away tie with Iran. They made it to Germany, and they held their own. They were eliminated in the group stage, but they were there. The footprint had been made. And then, silence. 32 years of silence. Australia came agonizingly close multiple times. A playoff loss to Uruguay in 2001 is particularly painful to recall. But they kept missing. The World Cup kept moving on without them. Until Guus Hiddink. There are managers you respect, and there are managers who become part of a nation's folklore. Guus Hiddink, the Dutch coach who had taken South Korea to the World Cup semi-final in 2002, took the Australia job in 2005. And he transformed everything. Barely 4 months into the job, Hiddink was celebrating on the Stadium Australia turf after John Aloisi converted the most famous penalty in Australian football history to beat Uruguay in a playoff in Sydney. After trailing Uruguay 1-0 from the first leg, Marco Bresciano drew Australia level on aggregate. The game went to penalties. Mark Schwarzer proved to be the hero, saving 2 of Uruguay's spot kicks and setting up John Aloisi to convert the decisive penalty, ending Australia's 32-year exile from the FIFA World Cup. Think about what 32 years means. A generation. An entire generation of Australian kids who grew up never seeing their country at a World Cup. And then that night in Sydney, 80,000 people watched Aloisi sprint, arms wide, the corner flag in his sights. Aloisi's strike was arguably the most significant night for Australian sport since Cathy Freeman won gold at the Sydney Olympics. Germany 2006 arrived, and Australia were extraordinary. Trailing 1-0 with fewer than 10 minutes left in the opening match against Japan in Kaiserslautern, it looked as if the World Cup dream would be over before it began. But up stepped Tim Cahill, writing his place in history as the first player to score a goal for Australia at a World Cup. A scrambled finish. Then another 5 minutes later. Tim Cahill and John Aloisi combined for 3 goals in 8 incredible minutes as the Aussies came back from behind to beat Japan 3-1. Then came the draw with Croatia that sent them through. Then came Italy in the round of 16. That penalty, that heartbreak, that night in Kaiserslautern. The impact of the tournament on football's growth in Australia was immeasurable. Kids who'd never watched a football match were watching. Adults who'd dismissed the sport were watching. The game changed in Australia after 2006. Australia moved from the Oceania Football Confederation into the Asian Football Confederation in 2005, a decision that opened up tougher competition, better preparation, and ultimately, better football. It was the right call. A painful adjustment at first, but the right call. The next few tournaments brought mixed results. At 2010, Australia drew a tough group: Germany, Ghana, and Serbia. A 4-0 defeat to Germany in the opening match was sobering, but the team showed resilience in subsequent matches. They finished with 4 points, enough for a credible showing, not enough to advance. 2014 in Brazil saw them hammered by Netherlands, despite one of the best goals ever scored at a World Cup. More on that in a moment. 2018 came and went, and then 2022. Qatar. A tournament where the Socceroos reminded the world exactly who they were. Not only did Cahill somehow run onto it, he had the sheer audacity to hit it first time. The volley came off his foot at 55 miles per hour. It flew across goal, hit the underside of the crossbar, and crashed in. The stadium was stunned. The world was stunned. The Wonder Strike was voted by FIFA as one of 2014's greatest goals, and it received a Puskás Award nomination, the award given to the best goal on the planet that year. He bowed out of international duty as the Socceroos' leading scorer with 50 goals in 108 caps. 50 goals. For a nation where football is 4th on the sports food chain. Extraordinary. Matthew Leckie, the modern era's most important player before Irankunda. A relentless, powerful winger who never stops running and has an absolute habit of scoring when it matters. His goal against Denmark at Qatar 2022, a brilliant solo run, holding off defenders, slotting calmly past the goalkeeper, was the goal that sent Australia to the knockout stages. Leckie has become a household name in world football after he guided the Socceroos to a famous 1-0 win over Denmark. He's still here, still in the 2026 squad, still the engine, and now the player who might carry the torch forward, Nestori Irankunda. Irankunda is widely considered the most exciting young talent in the squad, a direct, pacey winger capable of producing moments of individual brilliance on the biggest stage. He was at Bayern Munich as a teenager. Bayern kept a buyback clause when they sold him. That tells you everything about his ceiling. He is 19 years old going into this tournament. In football terms, he is barely born. And he could be the defining player of Australia's 2026 campaign. Australia has never hosted a World Cup, but that does not mean they haven't shaped one. What the Socceroos have contributed to this tournament is something harder to measure than trophies or titles. They've contributed belief. They've shown that football can travel, that you don't need a European or South American lineage to compete at the highest level, that a nation where the game is fourth or fifth in the cultural queue can still show up and give the eventual champions a run for their money. Australia's migration story is also football's migration story. That 1974 squad, players of English, Hungarian, German, and Indigenous Australian backgrounds, united by a green and gold shirt, was a portrait of what Australia actually is: a continent of arrivals, a country made of many countries. And football, more than any other sport, has always been the game that speaks to all of those communities. The Italian communities of Melbourne, the Greek communities of Adelaide, the Croatian communities of Sydney, the South Sudanese communities from which Nestori Irankunda's family arrived, now producing elite talent for the national side. That diversity is the Socceroos' greatest strength, and it always has been. What about tactics? What has Australia contributed to the tactical conversation? Perhaps less than Spain or Italy or Germany, but more than people give them credit for. The era of Guus Hiddink instilled a European-style high-pressing game into Australian football that filtered through the entire system. The decision to join the Asian Football Confederation in 2005 raised standards across the board, for the clubs, for the youth academies, for the national team culture. The 2023 FIFA Women's World Cup, co-hosted by Australia and New Zealand, gave Australian football an extraordinary platform. The Matildas went to the semi-final on home soil. Sam Kerr, Mary Fowler, the roar of a core stadium in Sydney. A new generation of Australian kids, boys and girls alike, fell in love with the game all over again. What the 1974 and 2006 men's campaign started, the 2023 Women's World Cup amplified to an entirely new audience. Football is growing in Australia. Not quickly enough for the impatient, but unmistakably, irreversibly growing. And the green and gold shirt, simple, iconic, immediately recognizable, is becoming one of the most beloved kits in the game. There is something genuinely joyful about it. A country playing football on the other side of the world for the love of it, refusing to be left out. So, what do we actually think is going to happen in North America? Australia faced Turkey, the United States, and Paraguay in Group D. That group will not be easy to navigate. The USA at home, in front of their own fans, in a tournament they're co-hosting, with a squad full of European-based talent, that is a formidable challenge. Turkey have the quality to surprise anyone on their day. Paraguay are organized and dangerous. But here's what I know about Australia. They love being the underdog. They have always been the underdog. They are built for it. The siege mentality, the work rate, the collective resilience. These are things Popovic has drilled into this squad. They will not be easy to beat. They will run harder for longer than you expect. And if Nestori Irankunda finds his form on the biggest stage, Popovic has set a target of reaching at least the quarterfinals. Is it achievable? It requires getting out of a genuinely difficult group and then navigating a knockout round against likely top 8 opposition. It's a tall order. But you know what? Australia made the round of 16 in 2006 and 2022. Both times, they pushed champions hard. In 2006, it took a phantom penalty from Italy, the team that won the World Cup. In 2022, it took Lionel Messi, the greatest player alive, to stop them. The ceiling keeps rising. The belief keeps growing. And a country that spent 32 years just trying to get to the tournament is now publicly targeting the last 8. That is not arrogance. That is earned confidence. Drop your prediction in the comments. Can the Socceroos reach the quarterfinal? And if you're enjoying the Homeland series, hit subscribe, because we're visiting all 48 nations, and the journey is just getting started. The Socceroos are coming, and they are not here just to make up the numbers.